Have you ever been uninvited to your own home? It sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what happened to me. That night, 100 people laughed, danced, and clinked glasses just a few steps from my bedroom window. My own land, my own house, my own blood. Yet I sat there, in silence, wearing my old cotton robe, feeling like a stranger on the soil my father and I once worked with our bare hands. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm 58 years old, and this ranch is my whole life. Every fence post, every tree, every patch of grass. I built it. I protected it. When my father died, he left it in my name. When my husband passed, I promised him I'd never abandon it. But that night, the land didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt taken. I remember it clearly. A neighbor called around sunset. "Mary, did you organize that huge party? It looks beautiful from the highway." I froze. "Party?" I whispered. She said there were lights, music, cars parked everywhere. I hung up and walked to the window. From there, I saw the glow of fairy lights, white tents, people in fancy clothes, and laughter. Lots of laughter. I squinted and saw faces I knew. Church friends, family, even the mailman. But no one had called me. No one had knocked. My son, Robert, was turning 35 that day, and I thought maybe it was just a surprise party. Maybe they planned to call me out later. I smiled weakly at the thought. "Maybe it's a mistake," I whispered to myself, trying to calm the growing ache in my chest. Then I opened my phone, and there it was. Vivian, my daughter-in-law, had posted a picture. She and Robert stood smiling in front of the ranch gate, golden balloons behind them. The caption said, "Our house, our party, our family." That line cut straight through me. Our house. I stared at those words until the screen blurred with tears. My house. My father's land, my late husband's memories. Everything in that picture belonged to my bloodline, yet she had claimed it like a trophy. People wrote things like, "What a beautiful home you two have. Such a perfect couple. You throw the best parties, Vivian." I could almost hear my heartbeat in my ears. Not one person mentioned me. Not one person said Mrs. Johnson's ranch. I was invisible. I don't know how long I sat there, but by 10,003 p.m., I still hadn't moved. I thought about going down there, fixing my hair, putting on something nice, pretending to be happy. I even reached for my shoes once. But something inside me said no. It wasn't pride, it was pain. The kind of pain that comes when you realize you've been replaced. Outside, the band started playing Sweet Caroline. I heard voices singing, "Good times never seemed so good." I almost laughed. "Good times," I muttered. Not for me. Then I saw it, the big floodlights shimmering across the trees, the glow on the roof of the barn. And suddenly a thought hit me like lightning. Those lights, that music, the sound system, the catering, all powered by my generator, my diesel. My hands trembled. "No, Mary, don't do it," I whispered to myself. But another voice inside said, "They need to remember whose land this is." I walked through the dark hallway, my slippers silent on the wooden floor. The house smelled faintly of lavender and dust. When I reached the back door, the cool night air hit my face. I could hear laughter from afar, loud, careless, echoing through my land like it owned the place. The generator room was by the laundry shed. My father had built it 30 years ago. I knew every switch, every fuse. The hum of the engine filled the air, steady and proud, like a heartbeat. I opened the metal door. The noise was loud, almost comforting. I placed my hand on the main lever. My heart was pounding. I took a deep breath and whispered, "Let's see how they celebrate without me." Then, click! Instant silence. The lights went out. The music stopped mid-beat. The laughter froze. For a moment, the world stood still. Then came the chaos. Shouts, confusion, phones lighting up faces, people stumbling in the dark. "What happened? The power's out! Somebody fix it!" I stood there in the moonlight, the white of my robe glowing faintly. My breath was shaky, but my voice wasn't. "I want everyone off my property. The words left my mouth like thunder. The chatter stopped. The night turned heavy. Someone whispered, "Was that Robert's mother?" No one moved. They thought maybe I was joking, that I'd turn the lights back on and laugh it off. But I didn't. "You didn't ask my permission for this party," I said, louder this time. "You used my land, my power, my home, and you didn't invite me, so now I'm inviting you to leave." From the shadows, I saw Robert walking toward me. Even in the darkness, I recognized his stride, quick, confident, annoyed. "Mom, what are you doing?" he shouted. I didn't answer. I let the silence hang heavy. The crowd was watching, whispering. He came closer. "Mom, please, stop. You're embarrassing me." Embarrassing him. That word hit me like a slap. I turned slowly toward him. "Embarrassing you? Robert, this is my ranch. You don't get to call it yours." He sighed, exasperated. "Mom, it's our house too. We live here." Those words, "our house too," burned more than anything. Like everything I had done, every sacrifice, every sleepless night meant nothing. One by one, people started leaving. Cars turned on their headlights. Engines started. The music was gone. The party died. Vivian walked past me in silence. Her heels clicked against the gravel. Her perfume lingered in the air, sweet, sharp, and cold. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. Her silence said it all. Robert followed her. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even look back. When the last car left, I turned the generator back on. The lights flickered inside the empty tents, revealing half-eaten food, overturned chairs, and glitter scattered like dust. I laughed quietly, a bitter, broken laugh. "Happy birthday, son," I whispered. The same fields where Robert used to run barefoot, chasing butterflies. And that morning, as the sun rose, I realized something. It wasn't just a party they took from me. It was my place in my own family. But what broke me that night wasn't the darkness outside. It was the darkness inside my own home. Because what happened next showed me just how far they were willing to go to erase me. Have you ever heard silence so heavy that it felt alive? That night, after the lights went out and the laughter faded, that's all I heard. Silence. Not peaceful silence. The kind that makes your heart pound. The kind that fills your ears with the echo of everything that's just broken. I sat there for a long time after everyone left. My fingers still trembled. I could still smell the diesel from the generator and the faint scent of burnt candles they had lit when the power went out. My son's laughter, my daughter-in-law's voice, the sound of glasses clinking, all of it gone in one flick of a switch. Sigh. What a strange kind of justice that was. When I finally walked back into the house, it was dark and quiet. The wooden floor creaked softly beneath my slippers. I passed by the hallway where family photos hung. My father in his ranch hat, my husband smiling proudly beside a young Robert sitting on his shoulders. I stopped in front of that photo. My throat tightened. "Richard," I whispered to the man in the picture, "I did what I had to. I sat on the bed, still wearing my robe." The house felt colder than usual. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and stared out the window. The fairy lights outside still dangled from the trees. Dead, tangled, lifeless. I could almost imagine Vivian's face when the music stopped. I almost laughed. Almost. But the truth is, I didn't feel proud. I felt tired. So tired. You know that kind of tired that doesn't come from your body but from your heart? That's what I felt. When the first light of dawn peeked over the fields, I stood up and walked outside. The sky was painted in soft pink and orange. The air smelled like earth and dew. I took a deep breath. Just another day. I sat on the old wooden chair on the porch, the same one my father used to sit in. The sun touched the edge of the barn roof, and the ranch began to glow again. For a few seconds it almost looked alive, like nothing bad had happened. But deep down, I knew something inside me had cracked. As I sat there, memories started pouring in, old, warm, innocent memories. I remembered the time when Robert was 6 years old, running through the yard with muddy feet, laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. "I caught a frog," he said, holding that poor little thing like treasure. "I laughed so loud that day." The ranch echoed with joy, not silence. I wish I could go back to that sound. That morning I made coffee the way my mother taught me, strong, with a little cinnamon stick. The smell filled the kitchen. For a moment it felt like home again. But then my phone buzzed. A message from Robert. "Mom, I can't believe what you did. Vivian's humiliated. You could have talked to us instead of making a scene. We'll talk later when you calm down." When I calmed down, I laughed quietly, a sad little laugh. "Calm down? You threw a party on my land and didn't invite me, Robert. What exactly should I calm down about?" I didn't reply. I didn't want to fight through a screen. All day I cleaned up the mess. Plates scattered, half-melted candles, napkins blowing in the wind. There were footprints on my porch, heels, boots, dirt everywhere. I bent down to pick up a glass someone had left near the steps. It still had lipstick on it, a deep red, the kind Vivian always wore. I wiped it with a cloth, then stopped. "Why am I cleaning their mess?" I whispered. And just like that I dropped the glass into the trash bag. It shattered. "Good," I muttered. "Something else can be broken tonight." By evening I was exhausted. My back ached. My hands felt heavy. I sat by the porch again, watching the orange sun sink behind the hills. The air was quiet, but not peaceful. Too many thoughts buzzing in my mind. I thought about Robert's childhood, about how every morning I woke up before dawn to make him breakfast, packed his lunch, helped him with homework by lantern light when the power went out in the old days. And now he couldn't even knock on my door to say, "Mom, come join us." I smiled weakly. "Maybe I spoiled you too much, son," I whispered. As night fell, I lit a single candle. The flame flickered, casting a soft glow on the kitchen wall. I sat there, hands around the mug of tea, and let my thoughts wander. When did love turn into distance? You ever notice how betrayal doesn't shout? It whispers. It sneaks in little by little until one day you wake up and realize the people you'd give your life for wouldn't even give you respect. I leaned back in my chair and sighed deeply. "Maybe it's my fault," I said softly. "Maybe I made it too easy for them." Outside, the wind picked up. The fairy lights swung in the breeze, like ghosts of a party that shouldn't have existed. I looked up at the stars and remembered something my father used to say. "Mary, land doesn't just hold crops, it holds memories. And when people forget that, they lose themselves." I closed my eyes. His voice sounded so close it almost hurt. Suddenly, a truck engine roared in the distance. I stood up, heart racing. Headlights appeared down the dirt road. My first thought, Robert. Maybe he came back to apologize. Maybe this nightmare was over. The truck stopped near the porch. The door opened. "Mom," he said softly, "can we talk?" For a second I just looked at him. My heart wanted to run to him, hug him, say everything was fine. But my pride, what was left of it, said no. He came closer. "You shouldn't have done that last night," he said, his tone quiet but cold. "Vivian's really upset." "I imagine she is," I replied, crossing my arms. "She didn't mean to hurt you, Mom. She just wanted to celebrate my birthday. On my land. Without me." He sighed. "Mom, please. You're making this bigger than it is." "No, Robert," I said firmly. "You made it smaller than it was. You made me smaller." He looked away, rubbing his forehead. "I can't do this right now," he muttered and turned to leave. "Robert," I called after him, "before you go, answer me one thing." He turned, annoyed, then said quietly, "We live here too, Mom. It's ours." That single word, "ours," echoed through my chest. "Ours." I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a whisper. "Go, Robert. Just go." He left. The headlights disappeared down the road. The same land beneath my feet, the same stars above my head, but nothing felt the same anymore. That night I didn't cry. I just sat by the generator room, listening to its faint hum returning to life. The same machine that had once lit up their celebration now hummed softly for me alone, and for the first time I realized the party wasn't what broke me. The silence after it did. But what came after that silence, the memories, the regrets, the truth of how we reached here. That was the real storm. You ever sit alone and rewind your life, scene by scene, wondering where it all went wrong? That night, after Robert drove away, I sat on my porch under the quiet sky, and my mind went back years to the beginning. Because before all this pride and pain, there was love. Pure, innocent, patient love. Sigh. I wasn't always this lonely woman sitting on an empty ranch. I used to be full of laughter, covered in dust from morning to evening, chasing dreams that smelled like rain and fresh grass. I grew up here, on this same land. My father, Russell Johnson, was a man of the soil. Rough hands, kind heart, little patience, but endless wisdom. Mary, he used to say, the land gives what you give it. Be lazy with it, and it'll turn its back on you. He wanted a son, but life gave him me. By 12, I could haggle cattle prices in the local market better than most grown men. I remember him laughing that day, patting my back. You're tougher than half the boys in this county, Mary. I used to grin and say, Guess you got your son after all, Daddy. He'd chuckle, light his pipe, and reply, Better. I got a daughter who's stronger than both. Those words stuck with me, because for years that was my only identity, the girl who could do everything a man could, and sometimes better. But then one day, love walked into my life, or rather, it rode in. Tall, calm, smelled like expensive soap instead of sweat and hay. Laughed softly. Oh, I remember that first Sunday. He came to the town square after church, asked if he could buy me a lemonade. I said yes, but made him pay with exact change. My father didn't like him much at first. City boys don't last here, he said, but Richard stayed. He learned the work. He rode with me every morning. He got blisters, cuts, sunburn, and never complained. And little by little, my father softened. When Richard proposed, it wasn't with fancy rings or big words. He just took my hand while we were fixing a fence and said, Mary, I don't want to leave this place, not without you. I laughed. Then don't leave. So he stayed. Our wedding was simple. The church smelled like lilacs, the band played old country songs, and we danced until the sun came up. My mother made my dress by hand, white cotton and lace. I still have it packed away somewhere. Pauses, eyes tear up. She passed away a few years after that. Cancer. Quiet and slow. But life gave me something to keep going. Robert. My mother held my hand. My father paced outside. And when I heard that first cry, oh, it felt like heaven had opened its doors for me. Richard ran inside, eyes wet. He looks just like you, he said, smiling. Same forehead, same stubborn mouth. Laughed softly through tears. Robert had my eyes, my temper, and my heart. Those early years, they were golden. He'd tell me, Mom, one day, I'll take care of this ranch with you. We'll build big barns, more horses, more cows. I'd laugh. That's a long way off, sweetie. You have to study first. He'd pout. But you didn't study that much. Exactly, I'd say. That's why you should. Life felt perfect then. My father was proud. He'd ride with Robert, showing him the property lines. Look, boy, he'd say, pointing to the horizon, all this is yours one day. Take care of it like your mama takes care of it. And Robert would nod seriously, that little face full of pride. I will, Grandpa. Promise. But life doesn't stay golden forever, does it? One summer morning, when Robert was just 8, my father didn't come back from checking the fences. We found him near the west field, lying under the mesquite tree, hat beside him, his hand still holding the wire cutter. Silent. That day, the ranch lost its voice, and I lost the man who had taught me everything. I remember standing at his funeral, clutching Robert's hand so tightly he whispered, Mom, you're hurting me. But I couldn't let go. I was scared that if I did, I'd fall apart. My father had left everything, the entire ranch, in my name. Not Richard's, mine. Mary knows the land, his will said. She'll know what to do when I'm gone. Richard never argued. He just smiled and said, "Your dad was right. You're the boss here." And for years we worked as a team. He handled the heavy lifting, I handled the books. Robert grew. The ranch survived droughts, storms, and bad harvests. We were happy, but life always finds a way to test love. When Robert turned 15, he started to change. He wasn't bad, just distant. More time in town, less time with me. I told Richard, "He's drifting." Richard laughed. "He's a teenager, Mary. Let him live." At 18, Robert told us he wanted to study business in Houston. I smiled and said yes, even though my heart broke a little. "Just promise you'll come back," I said. He hugged me. "Of course, Mom. Always. Always." Such a small word. Such a big lie. The house got quiet. Too quiet. Richard and I kept ourselves busy, but I could feel the emptiness growing. Then, out of nowhere, Richard fell sick. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months, the doctor said. He didn't even make it to 4. The day he died, the birds were singing outside the window. Voice trembles. I remember holding his hand and whispering, "You gave me good years, Richard. That's enough." He smiled faintly and said, "Take care of the land, Mary, and take care of our boy." Then he was gone. After the funeral, Robert came home, stayed for a week, then went back to college. "I can't miss too many classes," he said. I just nodded. "Go, sweetie, go chase your future." And just like that, I was alone. The ranch felt too big without him. Every creak in the house echoed louder. Every sunrise felt longer. Some nights, I'd stand by the window and whisper to the dark, "You'll come back soon, won't you?" But he never did. You know, I think that's when the distance began. Not the night of the party, not when Vivian came into the picture, but right there, the day he left for Houston. Because when a child goes chasing the world, sometimes they never come back the same. And when he finally did come back, he wasn't alone. He brought someone with him, someone whose smile changed everything. Have you ever met someone who smiled so perfectly that you couldn't tell if it was real? The kind of smile that hides something sharp behind its sweetness? That's how it was the first time I met Vivian. The woman who would one day stand on my land and call it hers. It was a warm Saturday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making apple butter, the way I always did at that time of year. The whole house smelled like sugar and cinnamon. My phone rang. It was Robert. "Mom," he said, voice bright and happy, "I met someone." "Oh?" "She's from Houston. She's studying interior design. She's amazing." He talked fast. Too fast. My sweet, calm voice suddenly sounded like someone else. Excited. Nervous. Like he was trying to convince me before I even said a word. I laughed softly. "I can hear your smile through the phone. Mom, you'll love her," he said. "I promise." I wanted to believe him. I really did. "Bring her home sometime, sweetie," I said. "This house is always yours." "I'll call before we come." He didn't. 2 weeks later, I heard the sound of a truck engine coming up the dirt road. The dust rose high behind it. I wiped my hands on my apron and peeked through the window. My heart started racing. Robert stepped out first. Taller, broader, city clothes now, nice watch, clean haircut. He looked good, but different. Then she stepped out, Vivian. She was stunning. Tall, fair, perfectly dressed in a short denim dress and high heels that immediately sank into the dirt. Her hair was long and shiny. Her perfume hit the air before her smile did. She walked up, that perfect smile glued on. "Robert's told me so much about you." I looked at her hand. Soft, smooth, not a callus in sight. And then at mine, rough from years of hard work. I shook hers gently. "Welcome, Vivian," I said. "I'm glad you came." She looked around, eyes wide. "Oh my, this place is huge." It's like something out of a country movie. So rustic, she said. Rustic like it was a compliment, but it didn't sound like one. Robert smiled, proud. See, Mom? She loves the ranch, I smiled back. Good, I said quietly. Let's see how long that lasts. Inside, I'd set the table. Biscuit, barbecue, refried beans, and rice. Real ranch food. The kind of food that fills both the belly and the heart. Vivian sat down and looked at her plate like it was a science project. This looks interesting, she said, picking at the barbecue. Robert laughed. You have to try it, Viv. Mom makes the best barbecue in Texas. She took a small bite, chewed slowly, and smiled politely. It's good. Just a little spicy for me. Spicy? I chuckled. It's mild, sweetheart. The chili is balanced with chocolate and cinnamon. Do you have bottled water, by the way? I smiled kindly. We have well water, fresh and clean. Her smile froze. Oh, right. Well, that's fine. Robert quickly jumped in. Vivian has a sensitive stomach, Mom. The doctor told her bottled water's safer when she travels. Of course, I said softly. We'll get some from town tomorrow. I tried to hide the sting in my chest. During lunch, Vivian talked non-stop about her college, her projects, her professors, her favorite restaurants. Not once did she ask about the ranch or about me. She was polite but distant, like she was visiting a museum, not a home. After the meal, I took them for a walk. The ranch looked beautiful that day. Golden grass swaying, horses grazing lazily, sunlight bouncing off the fences. Vivian walked carefully, clutching her phone. Oh, this is so authentic, she said. But wow, that smell! She covered her nose when we passed the stable. They're animals, dear, I said gently. That's how they smell. She laughed lightly. I could never get used to that. I'd need a dozen candles. Robert laughed too, but his eyes avoided mine. We reached the old chapel near the west field, a tiny white building my father built years ago. Vivian gasped. This is perfect for pictures. She pulled Robert close and took selfies, posing again and again. Take another one, she said. I blinked in that one. I stood back, watching them, my hands folded in front of me. That small camera flash, it felt like a line being drawn between two worlds, theirs and mine. That night I cooked again, lighter food this time, chicken soup, vegetable stew. Vivian ate more, but spent most of the time scrolling through her phone. Robert looked at her like she hung the moon. After dinner, as I washed the dishes, Robert came up behind me. So what do you think of her, Mom? I smiled softly. She's very different. She's wonderful, he said immediately. She's smart, creative, and she really loves me. I can see that, I said, drying a plate. Just give me some time, son. I'm still getting used to having someone new around. He kissed my cheek. You'll love her. I know you will. But something deep inside me whispered, no, you won't. That night I couldn't sleep. I heard them laughing softly in the guest room, her high-pitched giggle echoing down the hallway. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, remembering something my mother once told me when I was young. Mary, there are people who walk into your home and look around to see what's missing, not what's beautiful. Be careful with them. Now I did. The next morning I made a big breakfast. Chilaquiles, eggs, sweet rolls, and fresh juice. Robert came down smiling. Smells amazing, Mom. Vivian followed a few minutes later, dressed in fancy workout clothes. Good morning, she chirped. Do you happen to have yogurt and fruit? I eat light. I smiled. Of course. We've got papaya, melon, watermelon. Oh, she interrupted. Just a little, please. Not too much sugar. I chuckled. It's fruit, dear. The sugar's natural. Yes, she said sweetly, but fructose is still sugar. Robert quickly said, Vivian's training for a marathon, Mom. She's just being careful. Of course, I replied, spooning fruit into a small bowl. It's good to take care of yourself. As she ate, she looked around the house. The old wooden beams, the faded photos, the clay vases. Robert told me your father built this place. It must be worth a lot. I frowned slightly. It's not about worth. It's home. But still, a property like this could be used for so many things. You could turn it into a boutique hotel or a wedding venue. You'd make a fortune. Robert looked uneasy. Vivian, what? She said, laughing. Just an idea. I said nothing. But in my mind, I felt the first small crack, faint, invisible, but there. They left later that afternoon. Vivian hugged me lightly, the kind of hug you give a stranger. Thank you for everything, Mrs. Johnson. And really, think about what I said. This place has so much potential. I stood at the porch, watching their truck drive away, the dust rising behind it. For the first time, I felt something new in my chest. Not just loneliness. Fear. Fear that my son wasn't coming home anymore. He was bringing home someone who wanted to change it. And I was right. Because the next time they returned, they didn't come to visit. They came to announce something that changed everything. Have you ever had one of those days when life looks normal, but your heart already knows something's about to change? That's how it felt the day Robert showed up again, with Vivian and a diamond ring glinting in the sunlight. It was late December, the air was cool and dry. I was outside pruning the peach trees when I heard a familiar sound, the low rumble of Robert's truck. My heart jumped. Finally, I whispered, brushing the dirt off my hands. It had been months since I'd seen him. The truck stopped by the gate. Robert stepped out, smiling. Mom, he shouted, waving. I smiled so big my face hurt, but when the passenger door opened, my smile faltered just a little. Vivian stepped out, her long white lace dress fluttering in the wind, gold sandals shining, and on her left hand, that ring. I felt it before I saw it clearly. That chill, the kind that starts in your stomach and rises slowly. Robert came closer and grabbed my hands. Mom, he said, eyes sparkling, we have news. Vivian held up her hand like a trophy. We're engaged, she said, beaming. Sweetie, that's wonderful, isn't it? She said, showing me the ring again. He proposed at a rooftop restaurant in Houston. Candlelight dinner, live music, champagne. Oh, it was perfect. I nodded and smiled, but inside I felt something twist. My son, who used to bring me wildflowers from the fields, was now the man who put diamonds on someone else's hand. Robert hugged me tight. You're happy for us, right, Mom? Of course, I said softly, stroking his hair. I'm happy if you're happy. Vivian sat gracefully at the table while I made tea. She looked around, tapping her manicured nails on the wood. You know, this place is beautiful, she said, but with a few changes, it could be amazing. I raised an eyebrow. Changes? She smiled. Just small updates, modern touches. New kitchen, maybe marble countertops, lighter paint. Oh, and the porch could be stunning with new furniture and lighting. I stirred the sugar into her tea slowly. This house doesn't need changes, dear. It needs respect. She laughed, a short, high sound. Oh, I didn't mean any disrespect, Mrs. Johnson. I just see potential, that's all. Robert reached for her hand. Vivian's great with design, Mom. She has an eye for these things. I'm sure she does, I said, smiling politely. But the walls here aren't just walls, son. They hold stories. He didn't understand. Maybe he never would. Later that afternoon, they asked me to go out for dinner to celebrate the engagement. I hesitated. We'd never gone out to eat as a family before. Richard and I always believed home-cooked food was the real celebration. But I said yes. Maybe I just wanted to feel included. We went to a restaurant in town, one of those fancy ones with candles on every table. The waiter knew Robert since he was a boy. "Well, look at you, Mr. Johnson," he said, grinning. "And Mrs. Johnson, what a lovely couple." Vivian giggled. "Thank you." My heart dropped. "Mrs. Johnson, that used to be me. We ordered food. I got enchiladas, Robert a steak, Vivian a salad with no croutons, no cheese, and dressing on the side." When the waiter walked away, Vivian pulled out her phone. "Let's take a picture," she said, leaning toward Robert. "Smile, baby." The flash went off. "Perfect," she whispered, then posted it instantly. Robert looked so proud, so in love. I should have been happy for him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the more she smiled, the less space there was for me in his world. Halfway through dinner, Robert took my hand. "Mom, we have a favor to ask." I looked up. "On the ranch." I blinked. "Here? At home?" Vivian leaned forward, excitement glowing in her eyes. "Yes. Imagine the ceremony right in front of the rose garden, fairy lights everywhere, long tables under the stars. It'll be so dreamy." I didn't say anything at first. My heart was racing. "A wedding is a lot of work, Vivian. This place isn't designed for that kind of event. The roads get muddy, the bathrooms—" "Mom," Robert interrupted softly, "please, just this once. It's my wedding. It would mean everything to me." He looked at me with those same pleading eyes he had as a little boy whenever he wanted extra dessert. I swallowed hard. "All right," I said quietly, "if that's what you want." Robert jumped up and hugged me. "What?" "You're the best," Vivian squealed and clapped her hands. "Oh, my God, thank you so much, Mrs. Johnson. I promise it's going to be the most beautiful wedding you've ever seen." I forced a smile. "I'm sure it will be." But that night, when they left, I sat in my rocking chair long after the headlights disappeared. The air was cool, the stars bright, but inside me everything felt heavy. I remembered something my father told me the day he gave me the ranch papers. "Mary, the moment you let someone else make decisions about your land, it stops being yours." At the time, I didn't understand it. I thought he meant outsiders. I didn't know one day that warning would be about my own son. I looked around at the dark house, at the framed photos of my parents, at the old walls that had heard laughter, arguments, love. And I whispered, "You'll forgive me, right, Richard, for letting them use this place?" A single tear rolled down my cheek. The wedding planning hadn't even begun yet, and already something inside me felt uneasy, like a storm forming far away, quiet for now, but coming fast. The next morning I found a note on the table. Vivian had left it before they drove off. Written in perfect handwriting, "Thank you again for saying yes, Mrs. Johnson. I promise I'll take care of everything." I folded that note, tucked it into a drawer, and whispered to myself, "That's what I'm afraid of." But I had no idea then that saying yes to that wedding would become the one decision I'd regret for the rest of my life. Have you ever said yes, just to keep the peace, even when every part of you wanted to say no? That's what I did. And that one word, yes, became the beginning of the storm that tore my peace apart. Sigh. After that dinner, things changed quickly. Vivian turned from a guest into a commander. She started visiting the ranch every week, sometimes with Robert, sometimes alone, holding her big leather folder filled with sketches, color samples, and lists. "Mrs. Johnson," she said one morning, knocking on my door with a bright smile, "we need to make a few updates for the wedding." I looked at her folder suspiciously. "A few?" She laughed. "Well, just some small improvements. You'll love it." Her version of small meant repainting the entire house, remodeling the bathrooms, hiring landscapers, fixing the road, replacing the benches, trimming the trees, cutting new flowers. And that was only week one. Every sentence started with, "Mrs. Detections." Johnson, we have to. Never could we, never do you think, never may I. Always we have to. And Robert? He just nodded along. Every single time. Vivian's right, Mom, he said. We want everything perfect. I wanted to say, it's my land, not yours to perfect. But instead, I just smiled weakly. Do what you think is best. Inside, my chest felt heavy. My mother used to call that kind of silence the silence of surrender, and that's exactly what it was. The next few weeks were chaos. Men came and went, gardeners, painters, plumbers. The sound of saws, drills, and hammers filled the air from dawn till dusk. My peaceful ranch started to sound like a construction site. Vivian was everywhere, barking instructions, waving her clipboard, taking phone calls, snapping pictures for her mood board. Johnson, she called out once from the garden, we're going to remove those old rose bushes. They're too outdated. We'll replace them with imported hydrangeas. They'll photograph better. I froze. Those bushes were planted by my mother, I said quietly. Vivian smiled. But don't worry. We'll make everything look fresh and new. Fresh and new. I watched as they ripped the bushes out by their roots. The thorns scratched my heart deeper than my hands. That night, I sat on the porch watching the moon rise over the half-dug garden. I whispered, I couldn't protect them. A few days later, Vivian came again, her tone cheerful as ever. Mrs. Johnson, great news! I found the perfect catering team. They're from Houston, gourmet, very elegant. I looked up from my coffee. What do they serve? Beef carpaccio, salmon risotto, avocado mousse. It's going to be so modern. I blinked. What about barbecue, rice, beans, the food people here know and love? She waved her hand. Oh no, that's too heavy. We'll educate their palate. Educate, there. The way she said it, like everything I had ever cooked, every family recipe passed down from my mother and grandmother, was inferior. When she left, I slammed my coffee mug into the sink so hard it cracked. Educate their palate, I muttered, shaking my head. God help me. One afternoon, she brought me a stack of papers. Mrs. Johnson, here's the wedding plan. She laid them on the table. A thick folder with drawings, color palettes, flower arrangements, seating charts. Look, she said excitedly, this is where the main tent will go. White chiffon drapes, golden chairs, ivory tablecloths, and fairy lights. And over here, she pointed to my vegetable patch, the dance floor. Isn't it perfect, my garden? I asked, trying to stay calm. That's where I grow my corn and squash. Yes, but it's temporary. We'll replace the soil later, she said, brushing it off. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled thinly. Of course. Then she mentioned the budget. We'll handle most of the costs, but we'd need you to help with a few small things. Chairs, tables, decorations, maybe $50,000. I almost dropped my cup. Vivian, I don't have that kind of money. She blinked, clearly surprised. Oh, I assumed you did. Robert said you had savings. I do, I said quietly, but they're for emergencies, repairs, animal feed, the vet, not parties. Her tone changed. It went from sweet to sharp. Johnson, your son's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. If that's not an emergency, what is? I stared at her, unable to believe the nerve of this woman. Later that night, I called Robert. Sweetie, I said softly, Vivian mentioned you need money from me for the wedding? He sighed. Yeah, Mom. We're a bit short. It's just 50,000. 50,000? I repeated. Robert, that's half my savings. I know, he said quickly, but you've always said the ranch was for the family. This is family, Mom. Please. Don't make me feel guilty about wanting a nice wedding. Guilty. I felt my chest tighten. Love you. The line clicked off before I could reply. The next morning, I drove into town and withdrew the money. My hands shook as I signed the papers. $50,000 gone. When I gave it to Vivian, she smiled that same perfect smile. "Oh, Mrs. Johnson, you're the best!" "You won't regret it." Regret? I already did. Days turned into weeks. The ranch didn't look like my ranch anymore. My mustard yellow walls were painted plain white. The handmade tiles in the bathroom, the ones Richard and I laid together, were replaced with cold ceramic. My cozy home now looked like a hotel, perfect for pictures, empty for the soul. I walked from room to room one night after everyone left. The air smelled of paint and new plastic. The walls echoed differently, hollow. I touched the door frame and whispered, "I'm still here. I'm still here." But even as I said it, I didn't believe it, because deep down I could feel it. I was slowly disappearing. And the worst part? I was paying for my own erasure. But I didn't know the real shock was still waiting for me, inside a forgotten notebook that would reveal what they truly planned to do after the wedding. You ever find something that changes how you see everything? Your past, your love, your family, all at once? That happened to me one ordinary afternoon when I picked up a notebook that wasn't mine. Sigh. It was 2 weeks before the wedding. The ranch was crawling with workers. The sound of drills, hammers, laughter, engines. It never stopped. My quiet home had turned into a carnival of strangers. And at the center of it all was Vivian, walking around like a queen, clipboard in one hand, iced coffee in the other, shouting orders, posing for pictures. That morning I went into the main house kitchen to look for my recipe book. I was planning to bake Robert's favorite lemon pie, the one I used to make every birthday since he was 5. My hope was, maybe, a slice of something familiar could bring him back to me, even for a moment, but the counter was a mess. Fabrics, printouts, notes, receipts, all over. I sighed, pushing some of them aside, and that's when I saw it, a small black leather notebook half buried under papers. Vivian's initials, VJ, pressed in gold on the cover. Normally I wouldn't touch someone's things, but something about it made me stop. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the ache of being left out of everything. Maybe it was that quiet voice in my chest whispering, "Look." So I did. The first few pages were normal. Sketches of flower arrangements, mood boards, budgets, neat handwriting, elegant, organized. But then, a few pages later, everything changed. I froze when I read the first line on page 7. After the wedding, start process of renaming the ranch for branding. Branding? I read the next note. Consult lawyer about deed transfer options. If Robert co-owns, we can apply for renovation loan using land as collateral. My heart dropped. Next page, long-term plan, remodel main house, convert rooms for guests. Potential to turn property into the Golden Creek Retreat. Estimated value, 24M after updates. I stopped breathing for a second. I could barely read the rest. Convince Robert to take over operations after marriage. His mother's resistance may be an issue. Handle emotionally. Handle emotionally. My hands started to shake. The letters blurred as my eyes filled with tears. I kept flipping through notes, contacts, expenses. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was a plan. To take everything. Every brick, every fence, every inch of my father's soil. They wanted it. For a few minutes I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at the pages, listening to the faint laughter outside. Vivian's voice carried through the open window, clear and confident. "Make sure the arch faces west. We'll get better lighting for the photos." I closed the notebook slowly, my hands trembling. That wasn't a wedding plan. That was a blueprint for theft. I stood up, breathing hard. My stomach twisted. I looked out the window. Vivian was laughing, holding Robert's arm, showing him something on her phone. He was smiling too, his face relaxed, happy. My son, my boy, the same boy who once swore he'd never leave this land. I wanted to storm out there, scream, demand answers. Instead, I sat back down, clutching that notebook to my chest, and then I wept. Not the loud kind of crying, the quiet kind, the kind that shakes your shoulders but makes no sound. Because when betrayal comes from strangers, but when it comes from your own family, it kills something inside you. After a while, I opened the notebook again and took pictures of every page with my old phone. My hands were still shaking, but I forced myself to capture them all, just in case. When the sun went down, I walked out to the porch. The air smelled like fresh paint and fake flowers. I could see the fairy lights they'd hung across the trees. It looked magical, if you didn't know what it cost. I sat there for a long time, the notebook beside me. The crickets chirped softly, the wind brushed against my face, and all I could think was, how did I let it come to this? When did my home become a project? When did my son become a stranger? I remembered when Robert was 10, he once broke one of my favorite clay pots while playing with a ball inside the house. I got mad, yelled a little, and he ran to his room crying. Later that night, he came to me holding the broken pieces, glued together, and whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry. I'll never break anything that's yours again." That same boy, now letting someone else destroy the one thing I've spent my whole life protecting. Sigh. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, the notebook resting on my nightstand like a dark secret. I thought about calling him, about showing him everything, but something stopped me. Fear that he'd choose her side, fear that I'd lose him completely. So instead, I whispered to myself, not yet. The next morning, I acted normal. I made breakfast for the workers, smiled politely, even helped Vivian pick new flowers for the entrance. She laughed, talked about how beautiful the wedding was going to be, and how afterward everything will finally be settled. Settled. That word echoed in my head all day. Later, when she left for town, I went back to my room and opened my father's old trunk. Inside were the ranch deeds, the insurance papers, and my will, untouched for years. I ran my fingers over the yellowed documents and whispered, "Don't worry, Daddy, they won't take what you built." Because at that moment, my sadness turned into something else. Something cold. Something sharp. Resolve. They thought they could handle me emotionally. They had no idea who they were dealing with. For years, I'd been quiet, patient, loving. I had swallowed every insult, every decision made without me, every piece of my home taken apart. But not anymore. That night, I locked the notebook inside my cupboard and whispered to the empty room, "Vivian, my dear, you wanted a storybook wedding? You'll get one. But it won't end the way you think, because when love turns into betrayal, and betrayal turns into war, even the quietest mother learns how to fight back." Have you ever looked at someone you love and realized you don't recognize them anymore? That's what it felt like. The morning I decided to confront Robert. I just woke up, saw the notebook sitting on my nightstand, and knew I couldn't carry that silence another day. Sigh. The sun was barely up. The workers hadn't arrived yet. The ranch was quiet. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, staring at the notebook like it was poison. My hands trembled. My heart thudded heavy in my chest. Finally, I took a deep breath and whispered, "Enough." I walked outside. He was there, checking the fence lines with his headphones in. I stood behind him for a few seconds, watching. He looked so much like his father from that angle. Same shoulders, same careful stance. For a moment my heart softened. "Robert," I called. He turned, smiling. "Morning, Mom. You're up early. We need to talk," I said quietly. He pulled out his earbuds, looking a little confused. "Sure. What's up?" "Not here," I said, motioning toward the porch. "Everything okay?" I sat down at the table and slid the black notebook toward him. "Do you know what this is?" He frowned, picked it up. "Vivian's? Why do you have this?" "Because she left it here. And because I read it." "Every page," he sighed, rubbing his forehead. Mom, that's private. So is my land, I said, voice sharp. But apparently that didn't stop her from planning to own it. He looked up, startled. What are you talking about? The deed transfer, the loans, the retreat name, all of it. She's not planning a wedding, she's planning a takeover. He chuckled nervously. Mom, you've got it wrong. Vivian's just ambitious. She's helping me organize things. You're misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? She's talking about renaming this ranch, about branding it. You think I don't understand English? His smile faded. Mom, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I slammed my hand on the table. The sound echoed through the porch. You've let her poison your head. You don't even see what she's doing. He looked hurt. Mom, please. Vivian loves this place. She loves me. She's trying to build a future for us. By erasing me? I asked softly. By taking my name off the land your grandfather built with his hands? He sighed heavily, running his fingers through his hair. Mom, you're overreacting. You've always been too emotional about this land. You can't hold on to it forever. Times change. My heart sank. This isn't about emotions, Robert. This is about legacy. This is about respect. He took a step closer, his tone sharper now. No, Mom. This is about control. You don't want to admit that you're scared of letting go. You've been running this ranch alone for so long that you can't handle the idea of someone else making decisions. I stared at him, speechless. For a moment, I didn't see my son. I saw a stranger. Letting go? I whispered. Robert, I didn't hold this land for myself. So that one day, you'd have something real, something your children could touch, walk on, and call home. But I never thought you'd turn it into a business. He didn't answer, just stared at the floor. Tell me the truth, I said quietly. Do you know about this plan? Did you agree to it? Too long, Robert, I pressed, my voice breaking. Did you? He sighed and finally looked up. Vivian mentioned it. Just ideas. She said we could make the ranch profitable, maybe even expand. She said you'd be proud if you saw how much potential it had. I laughed, a bitter, hollow laugh. She's not saving the ranch, Robert. She's selling its soul. His face hardened. Mom, we're not doing anything wrong. You're being dramatic. That word, dramatic, cut deeper than anything else. I stood up slowly, my voice trembling. Do you have any idea how many nights I stayed up fixing this place while you were off in the city? How many times I worked till my hands bled so that you could have a life without worry? And now you stand here and call me dramatic? Mom, that's not what I meant. Yes, it is, I interrupted, tears burning my eyes. You don't see me anymore. You see an obstacle. He sighed, stepping back. You're twisting everything. Vivian and I just want to move forward. You're stuck in the past. I shook my head slowly. No, son, I'm standing on the past, because without it, you wouldn't have a place to stand at all. Silence, heavy and painful. Maybe it's time you took a step back. Let us handle things now. Step back. That phrase echoed in my head like a slap. I looked him straight in the eye. Robert, I've stepped back my whole life. When your father died, I stepped back and let you grieve first. When you moved away, I stepped back and waited. When Vivian arrived, I stepped back and gave her space. But this? I pointed to the ground beneath us. This land, this is where I stopped stepping back. He clenched his jaw, said nothing. I could feel the final thread between us tearing apart. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. If you go through with this, Robert, you'll lose more than just my trust. You'll lose your mother. His eyes flickered, but he stayed silent. Go on, I said softly. Go tell her I know. And tell her I won't let it happen. I turned to walk back inside, but before I reached the door, he spoke. You can't fight this forever, Mom. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. Watch me. Then I closed the door. Inside, I leaned against it, my legs trembling. My breath came in short bursts. I felt like the whole house was listening. The walls, the floor, the memories. I whispered, "I'm sorry, Daddy." I tried to raise him right. That night, I sat at my desk and pulled out my father's will again. I read it slowly, word by word, until I reached the line that said, "The ranch shall remain in Mary Johnson's possession until her death, and cannot be sold, divided, or transferred without her written consent." I smiled through my tears. "Looks like you still have my back, old man." I folded the paper carefully and put it away, and as I did, I felt something shift inside me. The fear was still there, but beneath it, a spark of strength. Quiet, steady, and dangerous. Because now, it wasn't about keeping the peace anymore. It was about protecting what was mine, but I didn't know then. Vivian and Robert weren't about to give up either. The next thing they did would take this fight out of my home and straight into a courtroom. Have you ever thought betrayal couldn't hurt you anymore, only for life to prove you wrong? Just when I thought things couldn't get worse between me and my son, life dropped a letter at my doorstep that nearly stopped my heart. It was a Tuesday morning. The sky was gray, the kind of quiet day that feels heavy before the rain. I was sitting by the window, mending an old curtain, when I heard a car pull up. Not Robert's truck, something different, a white SUV with tinted windows. A man stepped out, wearing a black suit, carrying a folder. "Mary Johnson?" he asked. "Yes," I replied slowly, standing up. "Can I help you?" He handed me an envelope. "You've been served, ma'am." I frowned. "Served?" He nodded politely. "Please read it carefully. It concerns property ownership. Have a good day." Just like that. I stood there frozen for a moment, staring at the envelope. My hands felt suddenly weak. I sat down slowly, my breath shaky, and opened it. The words hit me like a punch. Notice of legal action. Petition for partial ownership. Transfer filed by Robert Johnson and Vivian Johnson. I read it 3 times before I could process it. My son. Suing me for my own land. My eyes blurred with tears. The paper trembled in my hands. I could barely breathe. I whispered, "No, no, no," he wouldn't, but he did. The document stated that Robert was seeking partial transfer of the ranch ownership to ensure joint management and equitable control over inherited property. Big legal words, carefully chosen, but the meaning was simple. They wanted what was mine, now. I sat there, numb. I felt the room spinning around me. Every wall, every photo, every memory in this house. And now they were trying to take it away. I thought of my father's face, my husband's hands, my mother's laughter echoing through these halls. And then I thought of Robert as a little boy, running barefoot through the mud, laughing with a frog in his pocket. My throat tightened. "How did we get here, son?" I whispered. "What happened to you?" I just sat by the porch, staring at the dark fields under the moonlight. The ranch looked peaceful, like it didn't know it was under attack. At some point, I said softly, "You want a war, Vivian? Fine. You'll get one." The old courthouse smelled like dust and paper. Everyone there seemed to know each other, and they all knew me. People nodded politely as I walked in. "Morning, Mrs. Johnson," someone said. "Heard about the wedding prep?" I forced a smile. Something like that. Inside the lawyer's office, a tall man with gray hair looked up and smiled. "Mary Johnson! Haven't seen you in years. What brings you in?" I placed the envelope on his desk. "Trouble?" I said quietly. He opened it, scanned the papers, then leaned back, frowning deeply. "Oh, Mary," he sighed. "I wish I could say I'm surprised." I stared at him. "You've seen this kind of thing before?" He nodded slowly. "More times than I'd like. Children trying to get what they think they deserve before their parents are gone." "Before their parents are gone?" I repeated softly. The words stung like acid. He looked at me gently. "The good news is, they can't win. Not with your father's will protecting the land. You're the sole owner until death. No one can force you to share it." Relief and heartbreak tangled inside me. So, I'm safe? Legally, yes. Emotionally, he paused. I know that's another story. I nodded slowly. What should I do? He pushed the papers back toward me. You have two choices. You can fight it in court and crush their case quickly, or you can talk to them before it gets there. Maybe there's still a chance to make him understand. I looked at the papers, my son's name written next to mine, and whispered, I don't know if I have the strength to face him again. He smiled sadly. Then let the law speak for you, Mary. You've fought enough battles alone. When I left his office, the wind was cold. I pulled my shawl tighter around my shoulders and walked past the bakery where Robert used to beg for cookies when he was little. The memory hit me like a punch. My knees felt weak, and I leaned against the wall for a moment, whispering, Why, Robert? Why would you do this to me? When I got home, I saw his truck parked outside. My heart raced. He was sitting on the porch steps, waiting for me. Mom, he said, standing up as I approached. You got the papers. I didn't answer. I didn't want it to go this far, he said quickly. But you left us no choice. Vivian said you'd never listen unless we made it official. I stared at him. Official? I whispered. You call suing your own mother official? He looked uncomfortable. It's just business, Mom. We're not trying to hurt you. This isn't a company, Robert. This is my life. This is your father's blood, your grandfather's sweat, my years of sacrifice. You're trying to turn it into a profit chart. He looked down. Food, love, this home, your education, Fair would be thanking me, not stabbing me in the back. He flinched. Mom, stop making this emotional. How can I not? I whispered. You're my son. You're supposed to protect me, not destroy me. He took a step back. Once the wedding's over, everything will make sense. Then he turned and walked away. I stood there, tears burning my eyes. My hand shook so hard I had to grab the porch railing. That night I went into my father's old office. The smell of old wood and tobacco still lingered. I sat at his desk, pulled out a piece of paper, and began to write. Not to the court, not to my lawyer. To Robert. My dear son, I don't know what's changed inside you, but I know the man I raised is still somewhere in there. I hope one day you'll remember who you are and where you came from. Until then, I'll protect what's ours, even if it means protecting it from you. I folded the letter, sealed it, and placed it in the top drawer, under the deed papers. Then I whispered to the empty room, I'm done crying. My voice didn't shake this time. He replied softly, All right, Mary, let's end this. And as I hung up, I looked out the window at my land, the golden fields, the windmill, the quiet barn, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months, strength. Because love can make you weak, but betrayal can make you powerful. But even as the legal fight began, the final blow wasn't going to come from a courtroom. It was going to come from that wedding night itself, under the same lights that once made me feel invisible. Have you ever felt the moment your heart finally stops fighting? Not because it gives up, but because it understands. That's what I felt the night of Robert's wedding, the night my home no longer felt like home. Sigh. The sun had already set, and the sky was painted in a deep purple hue. Fairy lights shimmered across the trees. The air was thick with perfume, laughter, and expensive champagne. The ranch was glowing, but not for me. From my window, I could see it all. The guests arriving in shiny cars, women in glittering dresses, men in suits, photographers running around like ants. Every corner of my land was decorated, polished, transformed into something unrecognizable. I didn't go out there, not because I wasn't invited, but because I couldn't watch it happen. Robert hadn't spoken to me in weeks. The lawsuit was still open, sitting heavy in my heart, but I didn't stop it. I didn't attend the hearings. My lawyer said, Mary, you'll win easily. But I didn't care about winning anymore. I just wanted peace. That evening, I sat by the kitchen window, watching the lights flicker on my fields. the same soil my father once plowed with his bare hands. Now it sparkled under wedding lanterns. The band started playing. The music was loud, joyful, careless. I could hear laughter, toasts, and cheers. I saw Vivian walking down the aisle, radiant, confident, beautiful, the kind of beauty that hides its claws well. Robert stood waiting, smiling wide, completely lost in love or illusion. For a brief second I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe he was happy, that all of this somehow was worth it. But deep down I knew the truth. Happiness built on betrayal doesn't last. When the priest said, "Do you take this woman?" my heart whispered, "Please, son, don't forget who you are." But when I saw him nod and say, "I do," I closed my eyes. The tears didn't fall right away. They came slow, like a quiet storm that doesn't need thunder to hurt. I stayed inside. I didn't step out. I didn't wave. I didn't watch them dance. Instead, I made myself a small dinner, just tea and bread, the same meal I had the night his father died. Simple, quiet, almost sacred. The house was empty except for the sound of music leaking in through the windows. Every laugh from outside cut deeper than any insult could. At around 10,003 p.m., I heard footsteps on the porch. My heart skipped. I thought, maybe it's Robert. Maybe he came to say good night. It was one of the catering boys. He looked nervous. "Mrs. Johnson, ma'am, they need your help. The power's acting up. The lights keep flickering near the dance floor." For a moment I didn't say anything, just stared at him. Then I smiled softly. "Don't worry, son. I'll take care of it." I grabbed my shawl and walked toward the generator room, the same one I'd shut off the night of that first party. The air was cool and calm. The laughter echoed in the distance, faint but constant. When I reached the generator, I stood there for a long moment, just listening to its steady hum. That sound, it had become like a heartbeat of this ranch. My ranch. And then I pulled the lever. The world went black. The laughter turned into confusion. I heard gasps, murmurs, people calling out, "What happened? Is everything okay?" Then, in the silence, my voice carried, calm, steady, cold. "Good evening, everyone." The microphone on the stage had a backup battery. My voice echoed across the dark fields. "I hope you're all enjoying the party. I'm Mary Johnson, the owner of this ranch. The same ranch my father built, the same land my son grew up on." The crowd went still. The only light was from the moon and a few flickering candles. I continued, my voice trembling but strong. "But tonight I realized something important. You can take my house. You can take my peace. You can even take my son's loyalty. But you cannot take my name off this land, because this soil remembers me, even if he doesn't." Someone gasped. Someone whispered. "Vivian, Robert, congratulations on your marriage. I hope it's built stronger than your conscience." The silence that followed was thick. Then came the whispers, the murmurs, the sound of footsteps moving away. I just turned off the mic, took one last look at the lights, now glowing dimly again, and walked back home. Inside, I sat in my father's old chair, my shawl wrapped around me, and let the tears finally come. Not loud, not wild, quiet, steady, like rain that doesn't stop. After a while, I stood up, walked to the porch, and looked out over the land. The lights were back on now. The party had resumed, laughter forced, music lower but still going. I smiled faintly. I whispered, "Celebrate while you can," because deep inside I knew the court would end it soon. The land was mine, legally and rightfully. Their wedding might have looked like a victory, but it was built on borrowed ground. The next morning I woke up early. The tents were half torn, the flowers wilted, the decorations dull in the daylight. I walked through the mess slowly, barefoot, feeling the cold dew between my toes. I stopped by the old rose garden, or what used to be one. The new hydrangeas were already drooping. I knelt, touched the soil, and whispered, "Welcome back, Mama." Then I looked toward the house and said softly, "You see, Richard, I kept my promise. They tried to take it, but I didn't let them. I smiled. For the first time in months, it felt genuine. Because I finally understood. Sometimes you don't win by fighting louder. You win by standing still, by surviving, by staying. The land was quiet, but not empty. It whispered with memories, my father's laugh, my husband's voice, Robert's childhood giggles. And even though my heart still ached, I knew I'd done the right thing. Love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means letting go, but keeping your soul intact. I turned to go back inside, feeling the morning sun on my face, my home, my silence, my peace. And for the first time, the quiet didn't hurt anymore. They took the party, the laughter, the family, but the land still whispers my name. If this story touched you, even a little, leave a comment, my dear. And remember, you deserve peace, love, and respect. Take care of your heart. I'll see you in the next story.